Low speed skills and balance are something that you need for riding a bike. So here are some trial skills that you can learn anywhere on any bike that can help you on the trails. You might find yourself in a situation where there's something in front of you on the trail, and if you don't lift your front wheel, you're in trouble. It's going up and over the bars. Normally I try and rely on a manual to do that, so with a bit of speed, use my weight to get back, lift the front wheel in a nice safe position. Doesn't always work when you haven't got the speed, and you might have to rely on a wheelie or a front wheel lift, which is kind of like a half manual, half wheelie, but same thing. The trick to this really is, it's kind of tricky if you're not used to it, is riding in with your unfavourite foot forward. So I normally ride left foot forward. In this case, I'm coming up this fallen tree with my right foot forward. Feels weird. And then you do the wheelies. So you pedal in, I get half a crank, I get my favourite foot forward, and then I bang into the log and away I go. So there's a couple of things to make sure you get this right, is make sure you're in the right gear so that you've got enough meat. As soon as you pull into that, you pull your back pedal up and over, you don't just spin out and then hit the log. You need a bit of a lower gear to get some power behind it, and then get your foot over the top to make sure your leading foot is then banging in as you go over the log. Also make sure you get the timing right. If you go too early, obviously there's a risk of you dropping the front wheel. Not good. Too late and you're going to bang the back wheel into the log, but that's probably going to work as well. You can use this sort of jumping and banging technique to get over big obstacles in the trail. More often than not, I use this when trees may have fallen across the track. And if they're quite high, it can be pretty dodgy to try and bunny hop the whole thing, I think, because it's a much more critical thing to do. To try and do a big hop, say to get over this log, you've got to get the timing absolutely right, the movement right. Whereas if I bang into it, I've got way more room for sort of error. So as long as I hit this log kind of above halfway, I'm pretty much guaranteed to splat and go over it rather than hit it and go over the bars or just crash. So now my bunny hop's only got to be, you know, a reasonable height. It's not got to be a crazy big bunny hop. So make sure I'm using the good technique and trying to catch it just at the top so I don't get a massive impact. But it's quite a nice way of doing it and getting a feel for where your wheels are on your hop as well. Moving your weight to the front of the bike and using a bit of the front brake as well can help you get a rear wheel lift or an endo, which is actually useful for getting up and over logs and things. A slower pace where you can use a front wheel lift and then a bit of a rear wheel lift. Also, if you turn into the endo, you can start getting around really tight corners. So this is about making sure that there's weight on that front wheel when you apply the front brake, because if there isn't, there's a chance that it can slide. So move your hips up and forward, get your weight right over the bars and grab a bit of the front brake. Obviously you've got to be careful with that. It is easy to grab too much and start going up and over the bars. So practice gently, just squeeze the brake, you know, give it a bit of modulation, don't just grab a big handful, and make sure you're on a nice grippy bit of soil or dirt as well. To add the turn into the endo, you need to basically turn the bars in as you're starting that grab of the front brake and that motion forward. That'll take a little bit of practice to get it exactly the right time. But you turn in, move and brake at the same time. You probably find, like me, I find it easier to go that way, turning in towards my back foot. But don't forget to practice the other way as well. Try and keep your weight above the bike, that's a tricky bit. Endos are fun little tricks, and you can either turn them into rolling endos or a stoppie, but you can use them a little bit on the trail. Sometimes a little bit of front brake will help you get your back wheel up little steps, or putting a bit of a turn into a rolling endo helps you get around really tight corners. There's a really easy way of practicing your wheel placement and for riding things like skinnies, like super narrow bits of trail. That's getting onto your local car park, finding a nice white line and trying to ride along it and pretending that if you come off the white line, you're falling to your doom off a 10-foot high skinny. So, I'll practice. It's icy today, but I'm brave. Oh, I think I've already fallen off the side of my 10-foot high skinny. Ah! Fallen off, definitely. So try and stick on the white line without steering too much, because if you steer, you'll come off the white line. So I'm really overcompensating with my weight sometimes. Whew. What really helped me that time is actually trying to look a long way to the end of it and not concentrate on where my front wheel is. Well, muddy tyres and wet mossy wood sounds like a good combo to me. It's very narrow. Oh, nailed it. Even though it's only small, it's still quite intimidating coming in something this narrow. Thing to do with that is if you kind of start losing your balance, obviously you've got no space to steer to regain it, so I'm just using my weight. But if I know I'm coming off, it's just mainly it's better just to bail off the side and ride out. As long as you're not 10 foot in the air, then hopefully you'll be better than I am in the first place. See, this one's well easy because it's so much wider. Thing to do here is just try and keep your speed without having to pedal. So a bit of pumping. Ah, oh, so easy, did it first go. It's another variation of the skinny, although this one is slightly wider, thankfully. You've just got these shonky waves in it. A side hop is a bunny hop with some sideways motion. So first thing you need to do is learn how to bunny hop. If you're not doing that already, check out the how-tos I've done previously. We've done a few of those to teach yourselves how to do that. Then you need to add a twist into both parts. So if you're doing a bunny hop properly, you're doing a front wheel lift and then a rear wheel lift. So you add a twist to that first by turning into it when you're doing the manual. So I turn in, lift the front wheel, that brings the front wheel over here. And then I lift the back wheel with my weight and put a twist into it by pushing to the side with my feet. Now this is actually really useful for things like coming off the sides of skinnies if you're messing it up, but I never mess it up, I get them right every time. It's kind of intimidating. Or dealing with rain ruts in the trail where maybe you're in a line you don't want to be and you want to side hop out of that rut or over the rut. The good old track stand is great for keeping your balance if you're going really slow, in fact, if you've stopped. So sometimes it's useful for dropping into steep sections, but actually I guess this one isn't really a trial skill. If we were completely honest, it's a track cycling skill, so from the drop bar crew. But basically, it's much easier if you find a bit of a banking, a bit like a velodrome, and I'm actually facing across it, and then I turn my front wheel into the banking, and then I'm just using the pressure on my pedals to push forward when I lose my balance one way and let it roll back when it goes the other way. So, balance of pedals, occasionally a bit of brake, but generally just sort of moving back and forth and keeping my weight above the bike. It's also quite helpful, again, to keep your chest up, head up, and sort of keep your gaze rather than looking at the floor. That can make it a little bit harder. So I like to look at a bit of a horizon or something. I quite often use a track stand maybe at the top of a steep section that's blind, just so I can take a quick look and then ride in without having to sort of put my foot down, get my foot back on the pedals and then ready to go. So away I go. Whoa! There you go, there's some super simple trial skills that will help you out on any trail you ride, and they're super easy to practice pretty much anywhere. Give us a thumbs up if you love doing a bit of trials.